artists. So, today, as our skill builder, we're talking about ellipses. So, the elusive ellipse, the frisbee of art. So, we are going to be practicing ellipses today because there are several things when you're trying to draw from life or observation that have an ellipse. So, you might be surprised how many ellipses are actually all around you. Anything with cone or a cylinder um, will definitely have an ellipse, and you can find those ellipses not only in the man-made world but also in the natural world. You will find ellipses, especially with people. There's lots of different ways that ellipses can help you when you're trying to draw people in proportion, um, and it's just a really great tool to know how to do a nice ellipse. So let's get started.
Starting with an ellipse, people are like start away right away and trying to make that oval kind of shape. But as a guide, you might actually want to have a horizontal line. So find any kind of straight edge or a ruler if you have one, and you're just going to do a horizontal line. Ta-da! Okay, so this is where it's going to act as a guide for your ellipse. And then you want to do the vertical line where the middle of the ellipse is going to be. So you can use your straight edge or ruler again, or you can just kind of draw a vertical line. So it doesn't need to be the exact size that your ellipse is, but it could be if you want to do it that way. So one thing about ellipses is that you're trying to show a cone or a cylinder in perspective. So you're trying to show a cup, but not from the top. You want to show it as it's going back into space. So the further I move it back into space, you can see the top here becomes more of an ellipse. So several ellipses on my cup here. And that's what we're trying to achieve today, is to get this kind of ellipse on a piece of paper, which is flat. So, people are like, oh, it's not that hard. Da, da, da. But to really do a nice ellipse, to make it look like it can be in perspective, then there's a couple little hints that I want to give you. So, first, you're just kind of just going to draw one. And, it doesn't have to be perfectly nice. Ooh, exactly. And you do want to draw lightly because you will be doing lots of erasing today. And from here, you can see, oh, okay, I have a little dent there. Oh, it's kind of lumpy on that side, but that's okay because just kind of starting off with some lines or an ellipse will actually give you something to make adjustments and then erase. So it acts kind of like a guideline. So I can smooth that out, I can puff up my dents, and I can shave off my lumps to make a more realistic looking or nice smooth ellipse. Now, if I'm looking at my cup from an angle, then there is actually a curve that is closer to me, right? And then there's a curve on the back side. So there's a front curve and a back curve. And since this curve is closer to me, it's actually going to be a little bigger than the curve in the back. Because remember, as things go back in perspective, they get smaller. So, what that means is that the curve that's on the top here is the back. And it's actually going to be a little smaller or thinner than the curve in the front. Okay, so I'm using the first line that I made. I didn't erase it yet because it's actually helping me get that really nice ellipse shape. Because now I can definitely tell that this is thinner than the bottom curve here. And that's exactly what I want because this curve is closer. Okay. Now that I have it where I want it, that's when I can erase kind of those guidelines and have the line that I actually want and have the ellipse that I want. Okay, so that is just a good way to get an ellipse. Now, with ellipses, you don't want any sour s'mores. So you don't want lemons and you don't want marshmallows. So when you do an ellipse, oop, let's practice, right? Let's get those good practice habits. You're in a free hand. That means you're just going to draw from your eye. You're not looking at a specific ellipse. You're just going to draw an ellipse. You don't want to do a lemon. And let me show you what I'm talking about when I talk about a lemon. So a lemon will have these points on it. And when you actually look at an ellipse, there are no points. Okay, it's all completely curved. But again, this can be a guideline. So I can go back and I can smooth out those points to get a nice ellipse. Okay, and then once I'm done with those guidelines, I've turned my lemon into lemonade. Now I can do a nice tall glass of lemonade, right? Okay, and then let me talk about marshmallows. So, marshmallows is when someone is trying to draw an ellipse and instead of a nice rounded shape, they kind of just do a rounded rectangle or a rounded square, much like a marshmallow. So, we're not trying to make s'mores today. We're trying to make those frisbees, those ellipses. But again, I can use this as a guide. I don't need to erase right away. I can see what I need to change and make those changes. Just like that. Ellipse. And it also helps if you are turning the page. You can even turn it upside down because, I mean, look at the way that my hand naturally curves when I draw. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. And when I draw the curve, I'm just going to turn it so that my hand has an easier time drawing that curve. So now I can go and erase that marshmallow. And there we go. A nice ellipse. Okay, so you're probably thinking, okay, Sharky, what's the point? Why are we making all these ellipses? Well, let's talk about what you can make with an ellipse.
And so, what can you do with an ellipse? Besides just looking around your house and finding an ellipse or two to draw, you could also actually use ellipses when you're drawing or you're designing cars. Tires and rims and headlights, oh my, all ellipses. And you definitely want not only the tires and rims to be from the same angle and on the same, in line with each other, but you also want them to be the same ellipse. And so making that horizontal line and making the same one for each tire or rim will help you with that. And, depending on the angle of the car, then you'll also have a different horizontal line to start you off with the ellipse. Even if it's barely there, you can still see a very skinny ellipse depending on the angle. Now, also, ellipses will help you uh, with just having some fun. So here you have these caterpillar wormy like things, and they are all ellipses. You can see that they have this kind of curvy line and that is acting as your horizontal or your vertical line, actually. So just have some fun practicing the ellipse and see what you can come up with. Or you can, take examples from real life, which is a skill that you will need, an observational skill when doing still lifes, but also portraiture, because our heads are definitely more ellipse like than sphere like in definitely in places. So an ellipse will help you immensely. So I hope you have fun today creating ellipses, trying to capture that frisbee of art, that elusive ellipse. Have fun and be creative. Bye bye.